welcome back. So today we're working on a G70. Customer complained about pulsation while applying brakes. So I already removed our wheel nuts, right? So let's just remove this wheel. So as you can see there, most likely that our cause of the pulsation is this rust surface here on our disc, right? So what we're gonna do is, especially on the supply chain issue, we're gonna machine the disc, right? Of course, before you machine it, you're gonna do some measurements first, right? If it's not on the service limit, because if it's on the service limit, you have no choice but to replace the whole disc brakes, right? And also, I think this car maybe was sitting just for too long, maybe not driven, because I don't think that this kind of rust will cause that if you keep driving it, right? Because the pads will clean the rust while you're driving or you're braking, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove our Brembo brakes, right? We're gonna remove there's a bracket there for 10mm bolts, the screws here, right? And that should be it, right? So let me just move this forward. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna punch this out, the guide pin, right? So I usually use this punch here, so just be careful because, you know, this is rod. It's very easy to see if you mess it up, right? So then I'm just gonna push this guy here, push it forward towards the disc so you can just take it out by hand, right? So next will be we're just gonna use a small pry bar. We're gonna compress the pistons so it's easier for us to remove these pads. So of course, we're gonna clean the pads too. Let me turn this guy here so it's easier. Then we're gonna remove this bracket here. And then the caliper mounting bolts are 17mm socket. Just make sure that you support this caliper, alright? Okay. And now we're gonna remove our two screws that's holding the disc. Remove this guy. Yeah, same thing as the back one. There's heavy rust there. Right, so let me just put this aside. And then, okay. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to clean the surface on this one, right? On the hub itself. Okay, so more or less, just removing the surface there, the surface rust, right? You can clean that perfectly, but at least you remove all those rust, right? So now we're gonna go to the disc, and then we're just gonna clean some rust in there too. And then after that, we're gonna go to the machine. So this is the guy that we will just remove from the left side. As you can see there, and I started already this one on the right side. This is the finished product. So now what we're gonna do is just gonna clean this surface here, this rust, and where the disc will sit on the hub, these guys here. So this guy is ready to be in the machine. So I'm just gonna set this up, and then I'm gonna bring you along on the machining process of the disc. Okay, so this is our machine, right? So right now it's cutting, it's doing its own thing, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna do the whole process. Right, so I'm gonna go back there and just set this to the rear Okay, so we're gonna do the rear now. So it's the same thing on the front side. I'm just gonna remove the sliders. And now, since we can't use any power tools there, we're gonna use ratchet and socket. Oh, I forgot to remove our pads. Same thing. Just press it against the disc. Okay, that's out. And then just rest your caliper on this side here. So now we're gonna remove the screws. So usually, since we're doing the rear, when we remove this one, we adjust our parking brake there to loosen the rotors. If it's very hard to remove, but you can start, taking out the disc. So whenever you hammer on this side, just be careful with the stud, right? So okay. So the same thing. I'm just gonna clean this surface here, right? And I'm just gonna set this up to the machine, and that should be it. And then we'll just do the finished product on the left front disc, and then we're gonna install the brakes. Okay, so now we're in the front. So I'm just gonna spray some anti-seize in the hot surface. Now we're gonna install our disc. So I'm just gonna spray some brake cleaner on it. So I'm just gonna put our screws in there. And we're gonna put our caliper back on. just gonna torque that, the mounting bolt. Okay, so I found our torque spec, right? Because I don't think the torque spec on this Brembo, it should be 30 foot-pound, right? So I just went to our, because it's like a drain plug torque spec. So I just went to the other model of Genesis who has a Brembo style brakes. It says they're 86 foot-pound on the front, and the back one has 72. So we're gonna torque that the same thing as on the front one, the back one, and we're just gonna install our pads, right? So we got our pads here. We're just gonna brush it off. Now we're just gonna use sandpaper, and then on the flat surface we're just gonna clean this contact on the pads. Okay, so that should be good enough. So that's clean, and then we're just gonna install this. So now on our pads, I'm just gonna use a brake lube, and then I'm just gonna lightly coat this or apply some here on the contact surface and also at the back one, right? So the same thing on our other side of pads. Don't go crazy on the brake lube, right? Okay. Now we're just gonna also clean your guides, right? The pins. And then we're just gonna put this in first. Now we're gonna put our bracket here. And then just push it in, and then push your pin. So now, I'm gonna use a small hammer. Right? And then just hammer it. Sometimes it's hard. You have to use a flat screwdriver or anything. Just push the pin towards a caliper so that it will move. Just gonna put this bracket on. Okay, so the front side is done. We're just gonna go to the rear. I think the machining of the disc is done, so we're just gonna install the rear disc. So same thing, we're gonna clean our tab here.
Now we're going to put our caliper back on and torque them.
So after you put your caliper back on and torque it, I'm just gonna put our pads. Same thing on the front, right? Just light application of the brake lube. so it doesn't go in properly, just push the piston. Okay, I'm just gonna put our pins. And just use the hammer. Okay, that's it. So we did our front and rear brakes, machining of the disc, and cleaning the caliper and the pads. So I'm just gonna put everything back together, and then we're just gonna pump the brakes before we move, because at least the pads is there, the piston, right? So, and that's it. Okay, so we're done with that vehicle, and now from Genesis, Canada, especially with the Brembo or high performance brakes, they said that we're gonna do a burnishing procedure. So it says there that, you know, accelerate vehicle to 80 and then heavy force of braking, and you do this 10 times, right? So because sometimes even though you don't do that, right, there's a highly chance that it's gonna come back for pulsation, right? So yeah, especially in the Brembo style brakes, yeah, I recommend that you do the brake burnishing procedure. If it's just regular brakes, I don't know if this is applicable to the regular brakes, right? So there's some articles on online, you can read that and see. So after that, just pump the brakes, right, until it feels hard and it stops, right? And then after that, check your brake fluid reservoir. If it's low, just top it up. And I think that's about it. I'm just gonna go for a test drive, confirm my fix, and that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any comments or suggestions, put in a comment, and that's it. See you next time. Thank you for watching.